Three mere mortals discover their ability to create entire universes with their minds alone. Upon discovering their abilities, these three, gods if you will, join forces to create the Dark and Stormy Nights, a supercharged team of creatives with the aim of helping artists and writers around the world while combating the forces of boredom and mundanity. They are the Dark and Stormy Nights.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Dark and Stormy Nights. This is Loki.
And this is Tyr.
And this is my chapter week. So I'm hoping I brought you a good story this time. I spent quite a bit of time working on it. Do we have any news? Anything new to talk about?
Not really.
I think we're going to have some news coming soon, though, right? We're going to do some updates and kick around some ideas about making things a little better, maybe. And I'm still working on the call-in feature. So I am terrible at this part of the whole thing, so...
Technical stuff.
Well, not necessarily technical stuff, but this particular part, the call-in feature, is a pain in the butt.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm just waiting to be able to buy a new cell phone and wire it directly into the board, I think. So.
Cool.
Okay, I guess we will get to this chapter.
Mm-hmm.
Now, some of this may seem outliney, and we'll just beef it up later.
That's cool. It's just the first draft.
So, Eliot and Lee enter the Huntsman arguing. The digital bell in the lobby of the Huntsman blurted out a loud, obnoxious bing bong, surprising Nigel, and startling Rowan as the door flew open, narrowly missing Rowan as it thud against the old tan-plaid couch she was laying on. She curled her body out of the way as the door shook the couch. The roar of bickering hit everyone's ears a moment later as the surprise wore off. The loud, nonsensical chattering slowly became audible as everyone's ears adjusted to it. A flurry of insults and blame-laying exchanged between the two. It was more than Nigel could bear. He had clearly not put enough bourbon in his coffee. Nigel stared at the two, at first in disbelief and soon in anger. He began rubbing his temples. His anger slowly rose from steady simmer to full-on boil. The back and forth was unbearable. Nigel attempted to drown it out by adding more bourbon to his coffee. But all it did was slightly dampen the throbbing behind his eyes. He watched the argument like a tennis match. The back and forth was mostly predictable, with an occasional Hail Mary insult. What the hell was that? Throwing salt at a clearly solid being, Lee chided. How the fuck was I supposed to know? Because everyone knows salt only works on gaseous spirits. Gaseous spirits aren't a thing. Before last week, I'd never even seen anything supernatural, and I have been pretty fucking high, Lee. How the fuck am I supposed to know what to do when it's not like there is a training manual? Actually, there is, Nigel chimes in with his indoor voice. This was clearly a mistake, as he went unnoticed. There might be something like that, but you learn by doing, kid. I did, Lee. I was wrong. Move on. You can teach me, or let someone else teach me. Lee cuts off Eliot. No fucking way, kid. The last thing I need is you learning wrong from one of these simpletons and getting me killed. Hey, Ren squeaks. Lee dramatically flinches, and his attention shoots over to Ren as he suddenly realizes they are not alone. Nigel clears his throat, grabbing Lee's attention. Lee slowly turns his gaze over to him. Have you been listening in on our conversation the whole time? Who could miss it, Nigel says, rolling his eyes and running a finger around the rim of his coffee cup. Oh, like you could do any better. I can and did. You might be an asshole, but you are one of the best hunters I have ever trained. Trained? Ha! You never trained me. Oh, how quickly we forget our roots. I see this is in some part my fault. I went easy on you, and I did not take enough credit for it. All I remember is a shitty bargain that I still can't shake. Shitty bargain. I see that it is time for a little come to Nigel meeting. Come to Nigel meeting. Pfft, get over yourself. There ain't nothing needs fixin' that I can't fix myself. Not me, and clearly not the kid. Lee, you are angry, and you remember things wrong. You are resentful, and you take it out on Eliot. I'm getting very close to reassigning him. You can do that, Eliot chimes in. Shut up, Lee and Nigel answer abruptly. Eliot begins to lift his arm and open his mouth to defend himself, but Rowan puts a hand on his arm and shakes her head no as he looks down at her. Eliot sinks down to the ugly, uncomfortable couch, defeated. Rowan leaves her hand on his arm, and without thinking, Eliot cups her hand on with his. He finds it comforting and watches as the argument has shifted to Lee and Nigel. You think I saved your life just to have you an indentured servant? Saved? Saved? Really? Is that what you call this? This den has been through hell, Lee, and you are one of the few still standing. I would say that is a testament to, yes, who you are as a person, but also how I nurtured and trained you as well. What are you talking about? Come, it's time to go. I'll show you how it all went down. All right, this should be good. Come on, kid. No, Lee, just you. But who's going to look after him? Ren should do just fine. That's what I'm worried about. Ren crossed her arms and pouted at Lee's comment, contorting her face in distaste. As soon as Nigel had closed the door behind Lee and himself, Ren grabbed Eliot by the hand and dragged him out of the room. Come on, Eliot. We'll show him. I'm going to teach you so good you be out hunting him in no time. But shouldn't I wait for him? Lesson 1. Waiting is for fools. Lee is just going to get you killed, making you wait around, Eliot. You need to be ready. Besides, you'll never move up the hunter rankings letting Lee get all the action. Wait, what are hunter rankings? Oh boy, he's taught you nothing. No, not really. Man, I have my work cut out for me. Let's go, Eliot. I know a place I can teach you some things, and nobody will get in our way. Did Raina teach you all this stuff? Well, Rowan hesitated. Yeah, I guess so. I'm going to teach you. Rowan dragged Eliot down the hall to room 133 by his wrist. She let go a moment to put her hand up. Hold on, I got confused. Wait here. I just got to check something. Rowan unlocked the door to the room and peeked her head in to look around. When she popped out, a big goofy smile was on her face, and she gave Eliot 2 thumbs up. Okay, coast is clear. Let's go. Before Eliot could get the word "what" out of his mouth, Rowan had yanked him into the hotel room and slammed the door. Do you want me to take a break?
Sorry.
I can go
Is that
another
where you-
page. Should I go another page, you think?
I mean, it's up to you.
I can go another page.
Okay.
I just noticed how many pages in we were. All right. Nigel and Lee walked to the busy police precinct past a disheveled desk. The nameplate reads, Patrolman Carver. On top of the pile of coffee-stained reports and paperwork sat a stack of unsigned divorce paper. What is this, Nigel? Lee inquired softly. Nigel continued walking, making a stop at the captain's office. It's your last day on the force. Lee's face contorted in anger. The day you took me, you mean? It was your last day on the force either way. Nigel pointed down at the papers and the captain was writing up. They were his termination papers. What the fuck is this? Lee, you were a mess long before I found you. Come on, I'll show you more. This is bullshit. Nigel and Lee walked through the precinct towards the locker room. Lee's name was in no less than 3 conversations on the way, none for good reasons. Lee was hurt. Some of these men he considered his friends, but these friends gossiped about his alcoholism, his bad marriage, and his lack of work ethic. Lee crumbled inside. Come on, Nigel. This is bullshit, you know it. This is time as it happened, Lee, untampered with. It wasn't this bad. I was getting it together. I was cutting back on the drinking, and I was going to get my shit together. I was even going to get Anne back. Sure you were, Lee. Nigel assured as he rounded the corner into the locker room. With a crack of his fist, Lee's locker sprung open, and empty, half-full bottles of liquor spilled out. As for Anne Lee, Nigel paused as he walked to the end of the locker room and opened an emergency door. She's already moved on. Lee and Nigel passed through an office where Anne could be seen cozying up to her therapist. Reaching the end of the room, They pass through another door, slamming it behind them. Okay. Now we can pause, I guess.
Okay.
All right. Thoughts?
Not really. I mean, so far, I think it's pretty straightforward. So, like, are you implying that Eliot would want to go with somebody else, or do you think he has some sort of loyalty to Lee?
I clarify a little more as this goes on.
Oh, okay.
I mean, nothing comes directly out and says it.
Okay.
You know, but I do feel Lee has Eliot does have a loyalty to Lee, but Lee pisses him off enough to make him think about it.
Right. Okay.
You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
I think we've all been there with certain
for
friends,
sure.
maybe.
All the time, yeah.
You know, it's just like, man, you know what? I don't even know why I'm friends with you.
Right.
You know?
Right. And then 5 seconds later, you're the only one who gets me.
Right. Yeah. Right. You know. So yeah, no, I don't necessarily think that unless Lee did something really bad,
Right.
that Eliot would leave him. And
Okay.
it's only been a week.
Yeah,
Two?
it's been a short period of time. But when you spend like every life and death moment with somebody else.
And that's the thing, yeah. I think when you've gone through a life and death situation with somebody, even somebody that isn't necessarily a decent person, some kind of bond is formed.
Right.
You know, maybe not even a healthy one, but, you know. And in Lee and Eliot's case, definitely not a healthy one.
Right.
So.
Okay.
All right. Are we breaking and coming back?
If you want to.
Was there something else?
There was. The police stuff.
Okay.
Did you bring up his issues with authority?
Not directly. This is just the last day of the
Uh-huh.
force, but his determination papers, I think, kind of say some of that.
Right. It just seemed like it was because of the alcohol. So, that's fine. I was just not sure if I missed it.
Oh, well, I mentioned his bad work ethic, but I didn't directly say problems with authority. In fact, I don't say anything specifically about that in the entire chapter. We can bring it up or whatever. Or maybe I can even add that, you know, one of the conversations being had about him is his problem with authority or whatever.
Yeah, I guess it's not a big deal. It was just kind of a personality thing that we put in the build-up. But,
Right.
Okay, those were
In
mine.
reality, they don't tend to hire police that have problems with authority.
Well, right, but problems with authority don't tend to come out until
Yeah.
they're already out and working.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, you don't always know. I know. And some people are really good at faking their way into situations before you realize they are problematic.
Right.
So, all right. So come back after a break.
Sounds good.
Why my drippings will go?
Because you were listening to the Dark and Stormy Nights podcast on iTunes, Google Play Music, or Podbean.
Okay, so we are back from that break. Do we have anything that we need to discuss before I get going?
No, I think you're good to go.
Okay, cool. Bam! With a flash, the gun went off, and Eliot was on his ass on the floor. Rowan fell on the floor laughing. "What's so funny? I hit it, didn't I?" Eliot exclaimed, pointing at the hole in the monster, drawn on the wall in lipstick. "Yeah, but you hit the leg, and from 6 feet away. You should have been able to hit the head from... You should have been able to hit the head from that close." Eliot was entranced by her voice. "Now come on," she says as they helped each other up to their feet. Rowan gets in position behind Eliot and holds his arms as he takes aim. "Take a deep breath. Calm yourself." Eliot follows her instructions while trying to focus on the lesson and not her touch. "Come on, Eliot. The monster isn't going to wait to be killed. Shoot it." Bam! Eliot staggered as the gun went off, but Rowan's embrace kept him steady. After Eliot summoned the courage to open his eyes, he could see that he hit the heart Rowan had drawn on the wall, drawn on the monster. "I hit it. Holy crap, I actually hit it." Eliot's excitement grew as his realization set in. Rowan and he danced around in celebration. "Yeah, you did it," she cheered him on. The bouncing and dancing settled to a hug, and the hug to an awkward, gentle kiss. They embraced and kissed for a moment that felt like eternity to Eliot before she gently pulled her lips from his and in a whisper said, "Now don't look, just shoot." Bam! He did as he was told. Steady and cool-headed, he just acted. He didn't even look over at the wall. When she did, he just took the time to take in her features. His eyes trailed over her face. She slowly broke the embrace, but he continued to watch only her. She slowly approached the wall. Eliot continued after her. Rowan put her hands on the wall and felt around. Where did it go? She searched with her hands and eyes. Eliot sat down and watched her in silence. Rowan started to feel the outline of his last shot. I think, she paused, I think you shot through the same hole as last time. Eliot's attention was finally drawn to the moment. What? Lee and Nigel walked down the street in a run-down industrial part of town. Most of the buildings are abandoned. Gang graffiti adorns most of the walls. Windows are broken out. A disheveled man, fully wrapped in rags, huddles against a warehouse. Where are we, Nigel? Lee impatiently asked, just as he saw the police cruiser pull up in front of the warehouse. You don't remember this, Lee? Okay, I get it. But let's be fair, Nigel. The whole day is a bit of a blur. Fair? That's why we are going to relive it together. Lee's face saddens. Nigel points down the street. Do you see that van over there? Yeah, Lee grunts out. That is my strike team waiting for me to get here, as you are about to walk into the biggest Strigoi infestation the city has ever seen. We are getting ready to deal with this problem when you stumbled on it. You never go out on mission. We haven't had a threat like the Strigoi in a while. Lee watches a younger version of himself get out of the cruiser. He shouts to the disheveled man, Hey, come here! The disheveled man glances at him and then runs into the warehouse. God fucking damn it, he grumbles, and then makes chase. Lee's equipment rattles as he runs after the man. He has lost his breath by the time he reaches the door, forcing him to brace himself against the wall so he could hunch over and wheeze. After a few breaths, he entered the abandoned warehouse. It was clear that people were living here. Flaming barrels and old stained mattresses littered the ground. Lee spotted the disheveled man darting up the stairs at the far end of the warehouse. Lee made chase, almost tripping over the debris as he ran. Lee scrambled up the stairs and drew his gun, aiming it at the now visible disheveled man as he backed away. Lee followed him into the room. Stop where you are, you motherfucker. I am done chasing your ass. You take one more step and I will kill your dumb ass. Lee kept slowly advancing on the suspect. He entered the room slowly, but as he looked around, he was surrounded by emaciated humanoids. The creatures attacked Lee from every angle. He began firing his gun and fighting off the creatures, but they kept coming. Lee killed creature after creature, but there was just so many. They overwhelmed him, dragging him to the ground and tearing him apart. Lee kept killing as he died, stabbing the last one through the skull with his knife as his guts lay opened up on the floor in front of him. His consciousness slowly fading as he mustered enough strength to reach for his radio as a hand reached down to stop him. He looked to see a team of men enter the room. He watched as a man fired a shot, ending a straggling monster. Bang! That was weird timing. Eliot blew the smoke off the end of the gun. Rowan laughed. You're such a dork, she giggled, as she rolled around on the bed. Okay, now put all the moves together like we discussed. Are you sure I'm ready? You're ready. You are way more confident than when we started. You think so? I know so. Now do it. Come on, Rowan demands playfully as she sits on her knees on the bed, ready to catch. Okay, Eliot declares as he readies himself. He turns to face the monster, drawn on the wall. The bullet holes close up as he prepares. No matter how many times I see it, I will never get used to self-healing walls. Rowan giggles. Yeah, it's cool. Eliot digs in his footing and pulls a strap, which flings his shotgun into the air in front of him. He then draws a gun from his holster on his right hip, flinging it, spinning through the air towards Rowan. Next, he spins the gun out of the holster on his left hip while catching the shotgun in the air. Eliot then shoots the monster center mass with the shotgun while naming locations on the monster and shooting the monster in those areas with the handgun. Rowan dropped the magazine from her gun onto the bed and then yelled reload as she sent the gun sailing back at Eliot. He deftly dropped the magazine out of his gun while catching hers and slammed new magazines into the guns from their locations mounted on his legs. He popped Rowan's gun back to her as he readied himself for a second attack. "That was fucking awesome," Rowan exclaimed. "Lee isn't even going to know who you are. Are you sure you wouldn't rather just join my team?" "Psh, I wish," Eliot scoffed. Why don't you just join us? Lee doesn't appreciate you anyways." "I know, but Nigel said I'm stuck with him." "That sucks. Well, maybe we could convince Nigel together when you're ready." "That sounds nice, but the truth is I don't really want to abandon Lee just yet. I want him to take responsibility. I want him to make an effort, you know?" "I get it, but it's Lee. The universe used him as the mold when they created crotchety old assholes." Eliot laughed, which gave him a sense of relief as it was getting difficult to hold back the tears. Rowan smiled and took him in, fully aware that he was fighting off tears. She chose to not embarrass him and just let him have the moment. "Okay, lesson 8. Supernatural, messed up, spooky, scary shit. Let's do this." "Yeah," Eliot chimed in as he drew his gun and shot the ceiling. Bam! Lee is less than gentle. Sorry, hold on a second. Oh, okay. Lee is less than gently dropped onto a shabby makeshift table in the warehouse. Bam! The strike team finishes off badly wounded and hiding Strigoi as they find them. Lee is teetering on the edge of death as a tall, handsome, dark-skinned gentleman looks him over. The gentleman asks clearly and loudly, "What's his name?" "Patrolman Lee Carver, sir." "Well, Patrolman Carver, it looks like you put up one hell of a fight." All Lee could do is gurgle through the blood in his throat. "I could use a man with your talents, Mr. Carver. What say you? Would you like to come work for me?" Once again, Lee hissed out a response. "Well, Mr. Carver, I'm going to need more than that. I will bring you back from the brink of death and train you as one of my hunters in exchange for an equivalent amount of life years in service, which can be paid off early through diligent service. These are the laws of the universe as enforced by the Combine. If you accept these terms, gargle twice." Patrolman Carver obliged. "Very well. As we are both understood at this moment, you'll be unable to return to your former life. Understood?" Patrolman Carver attempts to nod. The tall, dark, handsome man begins to wave his arms around over Lee like a conductor, while chanting old words from lost people. The world became deeper to Patrolman Carver in these moments, as if to be more than just three-dimensional. He could hear a chorus of chanting. Lights began to stream from beneath him. Lee felt pressure, which for a moment brought him into a place of conscious awareness until he passed out. Lee and Nigel continued to witness the tall, dark, handsome sorcerer do his work, but the dark shadows around the room acted as a sort of theater where those things that happened in Lee's mind could be seen. Lee fought hundreds of battles and slayed countless beasts as his body was stitched back together. Little by little, life drained from the handsome sorcerer and into Lee, like a thread of pure life energy, leaving the sorcerer and putting him back together. The team of hunters cleared the warehouse of any evidence as the sorcerer worked. It took long hours to complete, as Patrolman Carver was little more than a few large pieces of bloody meat when they found him. By the time Nigel had finished, the team had been done nearly an hour, and they sat around and awaited orders. Lee had never seen this part before. He didn't realize that so many of his memories were a mystical training montage. He didn't realize that Nigel had given so much of his own life to save him, and he had forgotten that it was not Nigel's deal to make repayment so harsh. Lee was still angry, but now he was also angry with himself. It was also blurry. It has felt like forever. But his life was already over. Nigel gave Lee a second chance, and Lee knew it. Nigel looked over at Lee. Square? Nigel asked. Square, Lee answered. And with a click of his fingers, the scene dissolved into a room at the Huntsman. Now, stop taking this out on the kid and help him, teach him, nurture him. Lee opened the door, which led right into the lobby. A moment of panic set in as he didn't see Eliot or Rowan, but as Lee opened his mouth to speak, they walked in. Eliot locked eyes with Lee. With cockiness in his voice Lee had never heard before. Eliot asked, "Done with your little meeting?" "Yeah." "Well," Eliot barked, still overconfident. "I think we need to talk," Lee stated, while keeping his cool. Okay, that's the end.
Okay, that works.
I was a little staggery today, I think. I don't think I had enough coffee. So, what do you think?
I thought it was good. Did you have Nigel give him like a piece of his own life like we discussed, or no?
Yeah, that's what you were seeing. Nigel, the thread.
Okay.
That you could see Nigel getting older.
Ah, okay. All right. That was the only thing I was questioning.
Yeah, I didn't like say it as in, to just say that he gave up years, but you could physically see
well,
him
you did.
giving up.
You did say he didn't realize that Nigel had given so much of his own life to save him. Okay. Okay. Yeah, that works. I just missed it. Sounds good. I mean, I like the story. You did it like we said with him, having to take on the Strigoi and the deal and everything that he agreed to. So it works. And then as far as the lead up, you kind of left the Eliot and Lee thing with the tension in the air.
Yeah.
Where Eliot's coming in a little bit more standoffish and Lee is coming in a little bit more understanding.
Well,
so
and like I said, Eliot's learned some skills,
Right.
now that make him feel kind of cocky.
Right.
So it's like, I don't need you, old man.
Right.
I got another team that wants me. I have some skills.
So in my head, where it would go from here is immediately they'd face off and Lee would kick his ass.
I mean, if they were in a fight, you know what I'm saying? But I think because maybe Lee has been straightened out a little bit, that maybe he tries to teach Eliot. I think Eliot's less receptive than he would have been before his training from Rowan, though, which is exactly what Rowan wants.
Right.
She wants that rift there.
Right.
So.
Okay. Well, yeah, I think that's good. You left it with the opening, and then we'll do a plotting episode next to see where we take it from here.
And then we even gave Rowan and Eliot just a little moment, So, I know we glaze over it, but that was like hours of time, not just, suddenly they kiss in a room. They've been training,
Right.
And I'm hoping I kind of portrayed that well. So.
Okay. Sounds good.
All right. So, we're going to return next week for the planning episode, right?
Plotting, right? For
Okay.
chapter 11, I believe.
Right. So in the meantime, you guys can go check us out at darkandstormynights.bigbasirmedia.com. You can follow us on Twitter at thedarkstormyk1. You can follow Tier at Nova Drake Writer. And we have a Reddit page. So go over to our Reddit page. It is r/darkandstormynights. And you can also find us on Facebook as well. So we have tons of places for you to follow us, and and all those places you can give us suggestions about the story. You can let us know where you think this should all go. Give us your ideas. Don't let J.W. Panovic be the only person who tells us how to write the story. We love you, J.W. So we will see you guys next week.
Bye.
Bye.